All right. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another stream. Let me know if you guys are hearing the background music, if it's coming in too quietly or too loud. Trying to do something different, trying to switch it up a little bit. I feel like having a little bit of background music, especially in just Chan streams, adds a vibe. So let me know if it's coming in good, if you can hear it, if it's coming too quiet, too loud. Let me know. I did a test and it sounded fine, but obviously now it's the actual stream, so hopefully it's sounding all good. Fine, but obviously now it's the actual stream, so hopefully it's sounding all good. Fine, but obviously now it's the actual stream, so hopefully it's sounding all good. Fine, but obviously now it's the actual stream, so hopefully it's sounding all good. Okay, that sounds very robotic. Jesus. Also, go stop being a pick-me. So yeah, hopefully it's sounding all right. I would test it, but I'm not trying to sound all robotic. Okay. All right. But anyways, welcome back, guys, to another stream. So yeah, like I said before, this is going to be a just chatting stream where it's going to chat about some things that's, on my mind, stuff that are on y'all's mind. So yeah, this is going to be a very chill, sit back, relaxing stream. Don't expect anything of this. This is going to be it's like a virtual podcast where it's not just a podcast of me sharing my thoughts and everything, and everyone else who's listens in everything. People are able to share their thoughts and things, and hopefully we can do this for future streams. Let me know, especially since we now have chill background music that is hopefully not going to be too loud. I hope. I won't know until I listen back into it, so I hope it's not too loud. So as you can see on the screen right now, the first thing that I'm gonna do is college football is very, very, very soon. It's Saturday as I'm recording this. Next Saturday is week 0 of college football, but the real college football season doesn't start for another 2 weeks. So not next Saturday, but the following Saturday. And as you can see from the college football streams, but also from this shirt as well, from the Mizzou Ohio State Cotton Bowl. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but this is a Mizzou diploma. I have been a Mizzou fan, Mizzou alum the last few years. So I feel like at least to start off, I'm going to share my thoughts, share my predictions, because I have quite a few things to say about this Mizzou football team and everything. So might as well, since I have some thoughts, might as well do it here. I mean, that's the reason why we started this whole stream platform to begin with. So, gonna go down the record, game by game, predict whether it's gonna be a win or loss, and then we're gonna come back to it at the end of the season and see how wrong we were. I'm sure we're gonna pick games that we thought Mizzou was gonna win, but they lose, like they typically do in typical fashion. But then games that they somehow won. Because I'm just gonna say off rip and everything, as magical of a season Mizzou had last year, and it was a magical season. First time since 2013. It was 2013, 2014. I want to say it's 2014. That sounds right. Since Mizzou had a double-digit win season. Went to the New Year's Six game. They beat the Ohio State University. You can say all you want, Marvin Harrison didn't play. Oh, all these other 5 stars for Ohio State didn't play. And yeah, that's true, but, Henderson, the running back, he still played. And plus, let's face it, Ohio State is such an elite program, such an elite recruiting team every year that Ohio State's second and third stringers are better than Mizzou starters. That's just the difference of program that we're talking about here. Ohio State fans want to fire their head coach because he hasn't won a national championship yet. He has 10, 11 win seasons, going to the college football playoff or New Year's Six game, always a college football national championship contender, but they haven't won it yet, so they want to fire their coach. Give Mizzou 10, 11 wins every year, a top 5, top 3, or sometimes number 1 recruiting class in the country, and always a perennial national championship contender. Mizzou fans would take that in a heartbeat. So that just shows you the difference of vibes the programs have. So I don't know why that's a knock on Mizzou. Like, oh, you beat them, but they were like, third and fourth stringers. It's like, okay, Ohio State third stringers are better than Mizzou starters. So what? Like, Mizzou and Ohio State have completely different vibes. Ohio State goes in every year wanting to win the national championship. Mizzou hopes to not be embarrassed and hopes to prove people that they're relevant in the SEC. Which gets to my main problem. Before we get to the record, I am nervous. I am nervous the amount of hype and attention that Mizzou is getting this year because, let me put it to you this way. I have seen previous examples of Mizzou teams be hyped up or games be hyped up and them to fall way short of expectations. Like, it wasn't that long ago, chat, that Mizzou had one of the best recruiting classes in the country in 2017 because of what? Because of the number 1 player in the nation reclassified, Michael Porter Jr., and committed to Mizzou. That wasn't that long ago. That was my freshman year that happened. And Mizzou had, I want to say, the 10th best odds to win the national championship because of Michael Porter Jr. His younger brother, Jonte, skipped senior of high school to also play early. It was elite. And I remember that first game against Iowa State was insanity. I was there 3-4 hours before the gate doors open for fans. There was already line down the street like 3-4 hours early, but I was there. And obviously we know what happened. MPJ played 2 minutes, sat out for the rest of the game. He was out for the year. Mizzou still made March Madness, but it clearly was not the same team. They fell apart completely in the SEC tournament, the first game against Georgia, which I was there. That was the first real game that we got to see of MPJ, full game. And then they lost the first round against Florida State. Way short of expectations for Mizzou, a team that was talked about as a top 10 national championship contender. I can also go back to my freshman year. Mizzou football, it started off abysmal. You had games like, losing to Purdue 35-3, which was one of the worst football games on any level I've seen in my entire life. And then they shelled off a win streak of 7 games. So they went from 1-5 to 7-5, went to the Texas Bowl against Texas. And people saying Mizzou should win everything because Texas is a team that, went sits and sits. They struggled all throughout the year. Mizzou, on the other hand, started off ice cold, but then picked it up, won 6 straight games, was one of the best and highest scoring offense in the country in the second half of the year. I think they got blown up by 30. It was embarrassing. Other examples, I want to say it was my junior year when Mizzou basketball was at one point the best team in the SEC, and they were top 10 in the country. And I don't even think they made the tournament. I'll have to go back. Yeah, I don't think they made the tournament that year. Right? So there's just so many examples, and I'm sure there's a lot more that I'm just not thinking of. The point is this. When the spotlight is on Mizzou, they underperform. They play badly. They disappoint when the spotlight is on them. They only do good when they have nothing to lose. Like last season, Eli Drinkwitz was on the hot seat. Like people are saying that he should be fired after losing on a last second field goal against Wake Forest in the Armed Forces Bowl. Yeah, it was Wake Forest. He should be fired and everything. Like he has had sits and sits, 5-7 seasons. He's clearly not doing it. He's not doing anything. He needs to go. And then you go into the season. They won some games. They had a game-winning field goal, a 60-yard against Kansas State. You're like, okay. And you look at the schedule and you're like, wait. Mizzou is undefeated against LSU now. When did that happen? They lost, but it was a very, very, very narrow game where Mizzou just fell apart right at the fucking end. But up until the final minute or two of the fourth quarter, Mizzou was in it, and I want to say Mizzou was winning the majority of the game. One loss, but no shame of it because LSU was, the defending SEC West champions. And of course, LSU would later on have the Heisman winner. And also, the wide receiver, Blake Neighbors. Never heard of him. And then Mizzou play against Georgia at Georgia. And you're like, wait. Mizzou is a one-loss team going to Athens. Mizzou hasn't beaten Georgia yet, but imagine if they do. They didn't, but once again, just like LSU, it was a very, very, very close game. It came down the final minute. Mizzou was in it, and Mizzou was showing that they are a top team in the country right now. No expectations, and look what they did. And they turned into making a New Year's Six Bowl, 11-win season against Ohio State, all that. And now you're going to this year. People are saying that Mizzou is a top 10 team in the country. They're a dark horse to make the College Football Playoff, especially since the College Football Playoff expanded from 4 teams to 12. Mizzou is a dark horse to make the College Football Playoff. Mizzou's a dark horse to win the SEC now that Texas and Oklahoma are joining and everything. And I don't like I said, I don't like when Mizzou gets attention because that puts a target on their back and they underwhelm. And Mizzou has fought for, since I was a Mizzou student in 2017, the biggest thing you heard about on any social media posts when it came to Mizzou for football or any sport, but especially football, is, oh, Mizzou doesn't belong in the SEC. Mizzou's irrelevant. They haven't won anything. That is my worry. That's my worry. Is Mizzou is expected to win 9-10 wins this season, to not be an underachiever, to not be a one-hit wonder. And that concerns me. Mizzou typically averages 7-8 wins, which isn't bad at all. I don't know why people say oh, Mizzou isn't relevant at all. Mizzou isn't good. Mizzou goes back to bottom. Mizzou is a 500 above 500 team. That is not bad at all. But for some reason, people think Mizzou is Vanderbilt and they go winless. That doesn't happen, right? And to answer people's question, oh, Mizzou's a bottom team in the SEC. Mizzou hasn't finished in the bottom rankings since 2015. And guess what? The previous years in 2013, 2014, when Mizzou first joined the SEC, they won back-to-back divisions. Right? And you can make the argument, the reason why 2015 was such a bad year for them, or whatever year it was 2015, 2016, one of the years, was because Mizzou had to deal with a lot of protests going on that year. And of course, Gary Pinkel, their head coach, who led them to back-to-back division titles, he stepped away because of cancer. You can make the argument that's why. Mizzou is not as bad as people claim. And it's annoying from a Mizzou fan to hear about how you're so irrelevant. Mizzou is a bottom feeder team, a one-hit wonder. That worries me. The amount of expectations, the amount of scrutiny and of spotlight that Mizzou is under this year concerns me, right? they do not handle it. They are way better at going in, not expecting much, expecting anything, and if they walk away with a win, fantastic, great. And if they don't, hey, no shame in it. You lost to LSU, the defending SEC West champion. You lost to Georgia in Georgia, a team that was trying to three-peat as national champions, right? No shame in that. But when Mizzou has hype and has expectations, that's when they fall apart. And last thing I want is for Mizzou to be another Tennessee, where they had a one-hit wonder previous year, where they beat Bama, they were the number one team in the college football playoff rankings, and they had a 7-win season the following year, last season. I do not want Mizzou to beat Tennessee this year. And Lord knows if Mizzou has a 6-6 or 7-5 or 8-4 season, which aren't bad seasons in the slightest, especially since the SEC expanded, those people are going to be out with a vengeance. Oh, Mizzou is irrelevant, guys. We knew it from the beginning that Mizzou is irrelevant. Mizzou ain't shit. Mizzou's a bottom feeder team. How dare you think Mizzou is going to do anything? Right? Delusional. That worries me. I would love to be proved wrong. All right. So that's the disclaimers. That's out the way. So let's go down game by game in the schedule. I just want to give that little spiel, background on it, because most people don't understand what it's like to watch Mizzou games. So let me tell you, as someone who's watched it as a student for years, that is the vibe. We go in expecting whatever happens. We win, great. We lose, unless it's us being ranked and going to Vanderbilt and losing and giving Vanderbilt their first ranked win in the SEC, it is fine. It's oh, well, that just happens, I guess. But when Mizzou has a spotlight, that concerns me. So, let's go game by game. Anyways, so, August 29th, a Thursday game against Murray State at home. This should be a win, right? You should start off 1-0. I refuse to believe Mizzou starts off 0-1 against Murray State. If they lose to Murray State, I feel like their season needs to end right there. So, 1-0. Buffalo, week 2, at home. This should be a win. I refuse to believe otherwise. Mizzou should be 2-0. Boston College. Now, Mizzou played Boston College. It would be 2 years now. It was at Boston College. It was the year where they were saying Drinkwitz should be fired. It was the year where they lost in the Armed Forces Bowl to Wake Forest, like I mentioned earlier. It was that year. They were at Boston College. That game, I want to say went into overtime or double overtime. And Boston College won because off a bad throw pick by Cook. I think if I remember correctly, but once again, it's been 2 years. But it's at home. That should help. So, 3-0. Vanderbilt, the first game unconference. This should be a win. I refuse to believe otherwise. All right. So, Mizzou starts off 4-0. Yes, they're easy games, but as much pressure as Mizzou is on, we'll take it. We'll take them being 4-0 to start off, right? And now we get into it being difficult. At Texas A&M. The heck was that? I don't know. That was weird. So, at Texas A&M, a conference opponent on the road, yeah, you can say all you want about, Texas A&M hasn't been the same since they didn't have, Johnny Manziel. Texas A&M is a team that recruits very well, maybe legally, and they underwhelm. That all may be true, but Texas A&M Kyle Field is still an intimidating environment, especially if you play College Bowl 25. They're number 1 in that game for stadium atmosphere. It's an SEC team on the road right? So I think this is a toss-up. I would not be surprised if this is Mizzou's first loss. I would like to be a win, but I can see otherwise. Right? Can we see, like, the game? Alright. Number 11 at the time, Mizzou, and number 20, Texas A&M. I feel like if Mizzou is ranked still and A&M isn't, I feel way more confident giving Mizzou a win. Right now, as you can see, it's 53% Mizzou, 47% A&M. So, oh, I don't think you can see that. Ah, damn it. I don't think you see it fully. But, yeah, that's what it says. It says 53% Mizzou and 46% A&M. So, it literally is a toss-up. It's a 50-50 game for this. So, that concerns me. You have easy games, 4-0, and then you get to a road game where it's a 50-50 toss-up. Right? And it's one of those games where I feel more confident if Mizzou stays undefeated, which they should, let's be honest. These are easy 4 games. If Mizzou stays ranked and A&M loses a game or two before this, I will feel confident about giving Mizzou the win. Okay. So A&M, to start the year, plays Notre Dame, McNeese, Florida at Florida, Bowling Green, here in Arkansas, and then Mizzou. If A&M loses to Notre Dame or Florida in the Swamp, I think I'm pretty good at giving Mizzou the win, right? But this is a toss-up. This is not as safe as people like to admit, especially at A&M. If it was at Mizzou, maybe I feel more confident. But to me, A&M needs to lose a game or two to give me confidence. So we'll chalk it as a win, but it's not. If I had to give like a confidence meter of 1 to 10 for Mizzou A&M, I would say it's like a 5 or 6. I would say 6 is fair for the confidence meter for Mizzou A&M. Confidence meter will go up if A&M loses a game or two, or they're not looking that great. Mizzou's looking hot. I will feel more confident, but it's a toss-up. It is not safe. I can't lock it in fully like I can for like Murray State or Buffalo or Vanderbilt or Boston College. At UMass, this should be a win. No questions asked. Then we get to Auburn. At Mizzou. Now, Auburn is tricky. Auburn is routinely a team that, in my opinion, Auburn's one of those teams that plays a lot better than what the record shows. Like, they may have 6-6 seasons, 7-5 seasons, 8-4 seasons. But Auburn, I feel, just plays a lot better than what the record shows every year. I mean, that's why the Iron Bowl with Auburn, Alabama is so iconic, and that's why every year it seems like Auburn is winning the game and they're about to win everything, and it's literally down to the final play for Auburn, Alabama. Even though Alabama has the better record and the way higher ranking. So, this is another toss-up game to me. Right? If you escape A&M, right? If you escape A&M with the win, I feel confident about giving Auburn the win because I think A&M on the road is harder than Auburn at home, but it's still not easy. It is still not an easy game. So right now the matchup predictor is 33% Auburn and 67. Once again, I'm sorry that you can't see this, but take my word for it, and you also can see it for yourself on ESPN. Shameless plug, but also maybe not ESPN because they're owned by Disney, and Disney sucks. and 67% Mizzou. So I would say confidence meter for this, I would say is about a 7.5. I feel more confident of getting Mizzou the win versus Auburn than at A&M. But I feel like if Mizzou beats A&M on the road, then I feel pretty good about giving them the win for Auburn. So let's say Mizzou is still undefeated. They escape A&M and they escape Auburn. And then look what's next. At Alabama. Now, yes, I know people can say, oh, Alabama guys, they don't have Nick Saban. Alabama's washed. Alabama's going to fall apart. Alabama's going to go back to being mid. Even though Alabama's never been mid a day in their life. Like, Alabama went from Bear Bryant, one of the best college football or sport, or hell, not even college football, one of the best sports coaches of all time. They went from Bear Bryant to Nick Saban. Alabama has never had a bad coach or bad season, right? And it's on the road. Like, Mizzou would have to pull like some miracle off. Like, it would have to be some miracle. Like, when I say miracle, I'm talking like 2019 LSU with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Thaddeus Moss, Patrick Queen, that team, that LSU team, or 0-1 Miami. Like, I feel like Mizzou have to be a team like that to beat Alabama on the road, even if they don't have Nick Saban, because it's still flipping Alabama on the road in Tuscaloosa. So I'm giving this a loss, right? I would love to be proven wrong. Mizzou is not beating Alabama ever, especially on the road. So I would love to be proven wrong, but I do not have confidence. The confidence also doesn't get much easier because Mizzou may be back at home, but you're going up against Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma is difficult, right? On one hand, this is still Oklahoma. It's still the Sooners. It's still a team that recruits very, very well. It's still a team that is in conversations for conference championships and national championships. But Oklahoma's also been weird, right? And this is what I mean. When Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC, people said, oh, Texas is going to be the team that's elite. They're going to compete with like Alabama, Georgia for, SEC championships and national championship seeding for the college football playoff. And Oklahoma, they're still being pretty good, but maybe like 7-8 wins this year, right? Like Oklahoma's like fallen off apparently, which is weird because Oklahoma never falls off, right? So to like discredit them so much, I don't like it, right? Now look, is it better that this is at home at Mizzou? Yes. If you're going from at Alabama, Tuscaloosa to then at Oklahoma in Norman, absolutely not. Like, I will chalk those both up as losses. It being at home helps a lot. But does it help enough to get them to win? I don't know. And this is, now that we're talking about it, this part of the schedule, this is what makes me so concerned about Mizzou is so under the spotlight. They need like a 10-win season to repeat and show that they're not a one-hit wonder. Take a look at that schedule. A&M is a toss-up. I would say Auburn is also a pretty big toss-up. Alabama to me is a loss. Oklahoma is not safe at all, especially if the national media is saying, like, oh, Oklahoma's falling off and they're like an 8-win season at best, right? Oklahoma's not going to pan on the SEC as much as Texas apparently. That is 4 tough games that are toss-ups, that are hard, that are not easy. Let's say Mizzou loses all 4. That is an 8-4 season, and you fall short of expectations. Mizzou needs to win 2 of these 4 games to not be considered a disappointment. So out of at A&M, Auburn, at Alabama, and Oklahoma, Mizzou needs to win 2 of these games to not be a disappointment. And to me, that concerns me to no end, because I cannot say confidently Mizzou can do that. I would love to be proven wrong. Love to. But the amount of expectations pressure Mizzou is under this season for A&M, Auburn, Alabama, and Oklahoma, I don't like it. Mizzou needs to beat 2 of those. And I would love to be proven wrong, but I don't know. I don't know if they can do it. Right. Like, Jack, can you confidently say that out of A&M on the road, Alabama on the road, Auburn and Oklahoma at home, can you confidently say that out of those 4 games, Mizzou's got 2 of those in the bag, and maybe 3? I personally can't say it. I personally don't have the confidence that Mizzou's got 2 in the bag and maybe 3. Right? Alabama's a loss. So you have A&M, Auburn, and Oklahoma. Mizzou needs to win 2 of those to not be a disappointment. And that is assuming they win the rest of their schedule and they don't lose to anybody else. They don't shit the bed against someone else. They gotta be that perfect. And I just don't like it. I don't like how much pressure they're under. So Oklahoma, I would say is a loss. I will say is a loss. Once again, them being at home is clutch, because I feel like if it was a loss, it'll be a lot easier to say this is a loss. I would say if we're going with A&M and Auburn, those are wins. I think Alabama, Oklahoma are losses. Maybe we have what we had last year, where it's like, you know, you play at Alabama on the road. It's like similar to like when Mizzou played at Georgia last year. It was a close game and everything. Then maybe Mizzou, Oklahoma is similar to LSU, where you lose at home and it was a close game and everything. Hopefully. And then A&M and Auburn, they win. So Mizzou is undefeated going into Alabama. That's what we have. So Mizzou is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mizzou is 7-0 going into at Alabama. I don't know about that. Even if they don't have Nick Saban, I can't say confidently that will happen. So the rest of the schedule is at South Carolina. That should be a win. At Mississippi State, that should be a win. And Arkansas, that should also be a win. At home, Mizzou doesn't typically lose to Arkansas. I want to say the last 7 years, 5. It's either 6 or 7 years. Mizzou is like 5-6 or 6-7 versus Arkansas. The 1 year Arkansas won was, I want to say, in the COVID year, where Arkansas was like, you know, they had their own magical season and Mizzou was falling apart. I want to say that was the only year Arkansas won, was that year. So typically Mizzou does beat Arkansas. So look at that. That is a 10-2 season. And to me, it may be a 10-2 season. Mizzou may not have shown they're a one-hit wonder with my predictions, but I do not feel confident. I am still worried. I am still worried about that at A&M game. I'm still worried about that Auburn game. The Alabama-Oklahoma game. That is 4 very, very, very tough games that Mizzou has to play. And Mizzou has to win 2 of those on top of winning every other game to not be a disappointment, not be a one-hit wonder, be like, oh, Mizzou's irrelevant again. You know, Mizzou's a bottom tier team. How dare you guys think Mizzou's a good team? And that worries me. All right. so that's the college football talk. So yeah, like I said, Mizzou 10-2 year. We'll come back to this and see how wrong we were. Hopefully, the games I predicted are wins. They happen. They come to fruition. The toss-ups like A&M and Auburn, but I gave Mizzou the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully they win. And then Alabama, Oklahoma. Just don't get embarrassed. So that is the first thing to talk about on this stream. So the next thing to talk about, I guess one quick note. It's not gonna like dive into huge conversation. But since this is at least relevant, at least to me, and we've talked about FNAF stuff, FNAF movie 2. That's what we'll call it now, FNAF movie 2. Movie news. Today they just announced that the film studio alias they're going under for the second movie is Music Bots Films LLC. Now that probably means nothing to you, and it doesn't mean anything to you in the long run, which is true. It's just one of the things that I noticed because if I'm not mistaken, the first movie they went under Mad Cupcake or Bad Cupcake. It was something like that. It was something Cupcake. 3-letter word, A&D something Cupcake. It was either Mad Cupcake or Bad Cupcake. Once again, it means absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing when it comes to release date, what the movie's about. It means absolutely nothing. But the fact that we now know what the film studio is going under the alias helps a lot because that means we are very, very close to filming, which means the script's written, which connects because in the last stream, or at least the last PC stream rather, we showed off a page of the screenplay of the official script and read it off and everything, and we gave our thoughts on what this means, what the content of the scene is, and I thought the scene was, resting the kids' souls, getting the good ending from the Happy Stay minigame from FNAF 3, which sounds weird if we're talking about FNAF 2, but, then again, FNAF 1 brought in Springtrap and Vanessa from years later in the timeline, so, maybe just another one of those situations. So yeah, Music Bots Films is what the second movie is going under. Great. So, very, very soon, maybe a trailer. Let's see. So if you got the film studio name, that probably means they're probably going to start filming around September, October is when they're going to start filming. So that means maybe by like December, January, February at the latest, we are done filming everything. And then maybe the first trailer we get, if the movie's coming out on December 5th of next year, I'd imagine the first trailer we get is like August of next year. And then maybe the second one's like around October, November. Maybe, right? But that's just a thought. It's an interesting thought. So the next thing that I want to talk about is this whole, Jordan, LeBron, GOAT debate and everything. Because, I've said it in a previous college football stream that you cannot criticize LeBron for anything, right? You can't criticize him for anything because, LeBron, bronsexual fans out there will say, oh, he's, like LeBron, let's say, will have like a triple-double game. And then bronsexual fans are like, oh, 40-year-old having a triple-double, oldest player to ever do it. LeBron's the GOAT and everything. This is why he's the GOAT, right? All these other all-time greats, they crumple and shatter apart and are just a shell version of them or the former selves. LeBron has stayed consistent. This is why he's the GOAT, right? So he gets all of the praise when he does something good and being how old he is. On the flip side, you also cannot criticize this man because, let's say we say, oh, if he's so good, then, why can't he lead to the team to the playoffs or a playoff series win? And then the always defensive is, he's so old and everything. Like, why are you expecting him to do everything? All these other all-time greats, like, they weren't playing age 40. Here's LeBron doing it. Why does he have to do everything at his old age? Shouldn't the younger teammates step up and everything? So you cannot criticize him. You praise him because of how old he is and how consistent he is, and because he's so old and he's still consistent, that's why he gets all the praise in the world. But you also can't criticize him because of how old he is, which shows you all bronsexuals are just massive hypocrites. Right? You can't, you praise him because he's the oldest player in NBA history, got a triple-double, but you also can't criticize him because, he shouldn't be expected to carry the load, lead a team to a playoff series because look how old he is and everything. All these other all-time greats like Jordan, they were smoking cigars and gambling at age 40. LeBron is still playing at an all-NBA level, so why does LeBron have to lead a team to the championship when no other all-time great was doing it? They're just massive hypocrites. And the reason why I bring this all up is because the whole Jordan-LeBron GOAT debate, right? Like, it's just the GOAT debate in general, but let's be honest. When it comes to the GOAT debate, it always revolves around two people, right? Like Kareem, Kobe, Tim Duncan, Shaq, Magic. Like, it never revolves around any of them at all. It's always around those two, LeBron and Jordan, which, fair play. But the reason I bring it up is because it's such a drawn-out debate, such a drawn-out conversation. And yeah, it's predictable. It's annoying. It touches on the same points, and once again, it shows that both fan bases are just massive hypocrites because we talk about the same stuff, right? Like, LeBron fans hate Jordan fans, and people saying Jordan's a GOAT and everything. LeBron fans hate Jordan fans because they'll just bring up like Jordan's finals record versus LeBron's finals record, and that's the end of the debate, right? Like, that's why LeBron fans hate Jordan fans. But then at the same time though, LeBron fans are massive hypocrites because stuff they say makes absolutely no sense. So it's just hypocrites pointing at other hypocrites. It's literally the Spider-Man meme of them pointing at each other, right? Jordan fans talk about finals record, and LeBron fans talk about longevity and sustained greatness. Meanwhile, all these other all-time greats like Jordan, they fizzled apart after years and years of playing. Meanwhile, LeBron's still playing at age 40, right? We get to the same conversations every single time. Nothing changes. We just talk about the same stuff, right? Because let's go down some of the arguments, I use heavy air quotes on that, for why LeBron is the GOAT. And first one I'm looking at my phone right now. Hello. First one I'm looking at is if we drop anybody from the 90s era and the 2010s, they're getting dog walked. There's a reason why people look up to the newer gen. MJ's not guarding guys like Kyrie, Luka, Braun, Ja, etc. Well, first of all, don't bring Ja into it because who knows if he's even playing. You got injuries, and you also, got Ja Wick, Ja Thug walking around and everything. So, that's, here and there or there. But the second thing, this whole argument about, take Et's player take Et's player in Et's era and they'll do this. Or you take this old player in this new gen era and they'll just be washed, they'll be a role player. It's such a stupid argument, and it's just to me, it's one of the most casual arguments that you can make. Because, let's think about this for a second. So the argument is, if you take, current LeBron in, drafted in 2003, played all the way to the 2020s. You take that LeBron with the current technology, current knowledge of how basketball's played and everything, right? You plop him to the 80s and the 90s when Jordan was playing. LeBron has all the knowledge of how basketball's played in the 2000s, gets dropped into an era where they're decades earlier, and you say, oh, LeBron's going to win 10 rings. LeBron's going to win every single MVP. It's like, that's not fair, right? You can't plop a player in with all the knowledge that they have in their era and then go to a different era, not realizing that players and eras play differently, right? Like, yeah, it's basketball, but eras of basketball are played differently, right? Like, that's like saying, you know, you put in Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain into, you know, today's league, they'll be glorified role players because they were interior centers that didn't play with a three-point line. They were just 7-foot guys and just big for no reason to take up space. In this current NBA, where you're all about positionless basketball and you need bigs who can shoot. Because if you don't have a big who can shoot, you're at a huge disadvantage. But no one would disagree that guys like Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain are not all-time great players. So, you never hear that, but when it comes to plopping eras, it's always, you know, you plop LeBron in the 80s, he'll win everything. You put Jordan in the 2010s, he's not doing shit. He's going to be another, like, you know, Jaylen Brown, right? Which is stupid, because all-time greats, I can't believe I need to say this, all-time greats are an all-time great for a reason. Curry would survive in the 80s, even if like the 80s were very physical, the bad boy Pistons, everything, you know, throwing people apart and, you know, throwing punches. Curry would survive and thrive in the 80s because he's an all-time great, and all-time greats would thrive in any era. There's very few all-time greats that would struggle in a different era. Very, very few. They're all-time great for a reason. So Giannis, you throw him in the 80s, he's dominating. You throw LeBron in the 80s, he's dominating. You put Jordan in 2010s, he is dominating. He played at a time where three-point shooting was not that important at all. So give me a break on, you know, oh, if Jordan was put in this era, he wouldn't shoot. He wasn't a good three-point shooter. Well, he didn't need to be a three-point shooter or a good one because that was the era he played in. But now that three-point shooting is important, he would shoot more threes. This whole era talk is so stupid, right? That you put this player in this era and this is what they do, right? First of all, that's hypotheticals, number one, and that's wishful thinking. But two, it tells you nothing, right? Like, cool, the game of basketball has evolved and is a lot better in the 2010s and 2020s compared to what it was in the 80s. I mean, no duh, like that's how it should be. Like, things should always evolve and things should always get better. Like, things should not be how it was in the 80s, how it is now. Like, things should get better. And I guarantee you, in 2050, right, we're gonna have a player going around in 2050, maybe it's Wemby, maybe it's someone else, and the conversation is gonna be like, oh, you put this player in 2050, you put him in the 2000s, and he dominates, you know, rookie LeBron. Like, that's just how it's gonna be. Like, I don't know how the game of basketball is gonna be played in 2050, but I guarantee it's gonna be different than what it is now. So it just shows you that the times of basketball change based on what eras you're in, right? So for some reason, LeBron always gets the benefit of the doubt, and Jordan always gets shit on based on what era they play in. And if you put X player in this era, they'll be dominant or they'll be weakened, which makes no sense, right? Because like I said, no one would disagree that Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain are all-time great centers, all-time great players. But they play in an era where teams averaged 50, 60 points. It was all about, you know, having an interior center and just giving him the ball and just laying it up. There was no three-point line. That was the era of basketball they played in was just having a center who was big. That was it. Slightly different than what it is now. But you never hear those conversations that, oh, you put Bill Russell in today's league and he'll be a glorified bum. He'll be a glorified Hassan Whiteside. You never hear those conversations. Wonder why. So that's one. About the era talk and everything, yeah. All-time greats will survive in any era. That's just a fact. And then another thing that is just so predictable and just so on point is this whole having help argument, where it's like, you know, oh, look how much help Jordan had because of Scottie Pippen and Phil Jackson, right? That's all the help in the world and everything, but, you know, LeBron, he makes his teammates better. His teams are always shit. You know, look at the Cavs in, 2016, 2017, 2018, where their best team was like Matthew Dellavedova, not Hassan Whiteside, I'm thinking about earlier, Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith. But Jordan got to play with, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, which is another predictable argument that bronzexuals always say. And it's just stupid. It makes no sense. Because, first of all, I don't know if you need to hear this, but every all-time great has had all-time great help. It's not just Jordan, and it's not just LeBron getting the short end of the stick. Every single legend, every single basketball player that you love has had all-time help. Like, Kobe got to play with Shaq. God forbid nobody says that. D. Wade also got to play with Shaq. God forbid anyone says that. You have Magic Johnson, who got to play with, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who is a top 3 player of all time. You never hear anything about that. Larry Bird got to play in the 80s with Ken McHale, Robert Parrish, one of the greatest teams of all time. You never hear about that. Tim Duncan, he got to play with Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and get coached by Greg Popovich. God forbid he had help. You had Wilt Chamberlain playing with Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. God forbid he had help, right? So when it comes to all these players about having help and everything, it's always a knock on Jordan, which makes no sense because every all-time great has had good teammates. That's how it works. You need good teammates in order to win a national not a national championship, but I mean, also true in the college sense. But you need good teammates to win a championship at any level. Why is this a knock versus Jordan? Also, LeBron's had good teammates as well. He's had D. Wade, he's had Bosh, he's had Kyrie, he's had Kevin Love, Anthony Davis, right? Like, let's not act like LeBron's not had Hall of Fame teammates as well. He's had. So, yeah. It's just wild to me how people rip into Jordan having Scottie Pippen and Phil Jackson as help so much, and that like discredits all of his accomplishments. And so, oh, LeBron played with nobody. It's like every all-time great has played with all-time talent. That's just how it is, right? You never hear anyone saying about Magic needs to have all of his rings asterisk because he played with Kareem. You never hear Kareem's rings to be asterisk because he played with Oscar Robertson and Magic, right? You never hear those. It's always Jordan and Pippen, Phil Jackson, and LeBron and nobody. That's always it. But you mention anyone else, it's just complete silence, which is crazy to me. Once again, it shows that LeBron fans are massive hypocrites when it comes to this whole help argument. Also, since I have the numbers here, let's talk about this, esteemed, acclaimed Scottie Pippen here. Because I have the stats to pull up. Alright, so, Scottie Pippen. Let's look at him. Let's look at this guy right here. So, Hall of Famer, 7-time All-Star, 6-time NBA champion, 10-time All-Defense, 7-time All-NBA team. Okay, good. Okay. he averaged 16 points a game for his career. But, as you know, he played for other teams like the Rockets. So, you know what? Just to be as accurate and as fair as possible, we're only going to look at the Chicago stats, because maybe he averaged 30, I don't know. Okay. So let's see. So let's look at the Chicago stats. 1987, in his rookie year, he averaged 7 points a game. Great help by Scottie Pippen, right? So he played from Chicago from 87 to 98, and then went to Houston, then Portland, then Chicago. Okay. So in Chicago, in 12 seasons, Scottie Pippen averaged 17.7 points a game. Okay. Solid for the 90s. Okay. So, that's the help that Jordan had, was a 17-point game scorer. Okay. So, let's take a look at this. I have pulled up from last season the points per game in the NBA from last season. Let's see where 17 points a game lands you. All right. So you had Luka at first, which makes sense, the GOAT, at 34 points a game. Slightly more than 17 by the legend Scottie Pippen. He had too much help. Giannis with 30, Shea with 30, Jalen Brunson, Devin Booker, KD, Jason Tatum, right? So you got 25, you got 20. Oh, look, we got 17. Oh, here's 17. Okay. So 17, just to be as fair as possible, it was 17.7. So 17.7 gets you around this tier. Okay. So 17.7 points a game. I also hope y'all can see this. All right. Hold up 1 second. Let me move this around. Okay. So, Scottie Pippen averaged 17 points a game in his Chicago career. Once again, way too much help for Jordan, right? That's a huge knock for him. He played with Scottie Pippen, right? 17 points a game? Okay. So, 17 points a game lands you at the 53rd or 54th player in the NBA last season. So you're on par with Klay Thompson, who ironically went over 10 in an elimination game. Jordan Poole, who was historically one of the most inefficient shot chuckers from last season. Fred VanVleet, Brandon Miller, the rookie, GOAT. Tobias Harris, most overpaid contract in NBA history. Miles Turner, Emmanuel Quickley, Bogdanovich, MPJ, James Harden, who can't focus on strippers enough, Jared Allen, Chet, Jonathan Kuminga, Austin Reeves. This is where Pippen would have finished if we took his points per game from Chicago and put him in today's league, today's contest. 17 points a game gets you around Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, Fred VanVleet levels. Too much help for Jordan, right? You know, too much help, apparently. Right. You give Jordan Jordan Poole, that's apparently too much help for MJ. He needs to have all his rings asterisk to high hell because Jordan had teammates of Fred VanVleet, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole on his team. God forbid that's too much help. But I feel like if LeBron fans are saying that, you know, teammates like, you know, Emmanuel Quickley, Jordan Poole, MPJ, and any of those guys, you know, those are bums. Those are bum teammates. Those aren't Hall of Famers. Once again, ironic. So once again, it gets down to the point that they are just massive hypocrites. Is there an argument to be made that LeBron's the GOAT? Yes. Is there an argument to be made that Jordan's the GOAT? Yes. But when we start to bring in era talk of you put X player in this era, they'll do this, is just hypocrisy and just dumb, because it makes absolutely no sense of putting a player with all the knowledge that they have into a different era and just expect them to dominate, keep the knowledge they have, is crazy. Like, you're not putting Curry in the 60s when there wasn't even a 3-point line, because that makes absolutely no sense. But talk about eras, you put this player in this era, they'll do this. Apparently, Jordan had too much help, even though, once again, every all-time great has had help. That's how it works, right? And then, yeah, apparently Scottie Pippen, so much help, averaging 17 points a game, would be around the same tier as Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson. Great help. Way too much help Jordan got, right? For all those rings, they didn't need to be asterisked, right? God forbid he had a 17 point per game score on his team. Too much help.